I'm quite confident many of you watching are proponents of Second Amendment rights, and you exercise those rights. Our next guest exercises that right to the maximum with his YouTube channel, the Nutnfancy Project. It features weapons and equipment reviews, plenty of firepower, lots of excitement. Take a look.
Hit. 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 All hits. Center. Center. Hit. Hit. 67. Okay, now 2 rounds right there. Fitted with a BSA RD20 red dot on top. We just checked to 0. This TNP Gear Junkie is getting ready to run the track.
Well, it's a lot of fun. The channel is much more than it might look at first glance. It really does focus on that rugged American individualism, the implementation of survival skills, things that have been lost with each passing generation. You know, Glenn is always talking about how tough times really could be headed our way. Good to know how to take care of yourself. So we thought, you know what, let's bring on this guy, test out all of this cool gear, shows off his survival skills. I talked to him a couple of years ago, and he still is sort of secretive to me. He goes by just the name Nutnfancy, and he's on YouTube. Joins me now. So you're still not coming out there with your real identity. Is that the case?
Well, you got to trickle it out there, Scott. I mean, you can't just let it all hang out right out the gate.
Okay.
You know?
Well, so if we, we're going to spend some time here with you, but I just want you to promise here at the beginning, when you're ready to reveal who you really, you could come back here. Well, this is a safe place for you. I'm just letting you know.
You know, Scott, I feel safe with you.
Okay, good. Now,
we established that in May 2010 when I did your show back then.
That was on the
had
on
a
the
great
BCAT
time
show.
with you.
So and you have only in the almost 2 years since then, you've done more and more, and you've got 83 million video plays on YouTube, something like that.
Yeah, it's almost coming up to 90 million at this point. Yeah, lots of plays on the videos and lots of subscribers. Well, we're still kind of a niche channel, though, kind of small in terms of popular culture. Yeah,
and but your audience has followed you from the beginning, and so I have a lot of questions about this. But how did it start? What was the first video, and where did this idea pop into your mind?
First started with a knife review of all things, and maybe some members of your audience would just shake their head and go, "A knife review?
Yeah.
What is that?" Well, to us gearheads out there in the Nutnfancy Project, it's an integral part.
Gearheads, that's the technical term?
I don't know. It's out there in a lot of different communities, but we are gearheads.
So is this? Is that the actual knife that you reviewed that first day?
This is it. SOG Flash 1. It launched the Nutnfancy Project. I actually did the video for Amazon.com on an account I had. I threw it up, and I was like, yeah, I'll throw it up on an old YouTube account.
Right.
Came back a week later, it had 5,000 views. I did more.
Right. The name Nutnfancy, how'd that come about?
Completely off the wall. It was just a name I came up with because all of my pilot buddies, and by the way, I did come clean with my military past. I have a 3-part series called Air Force Stories.
Okay.
Talking about this, about being an Air Force pilot, retired lieutenant colonel. So that's out there.
Gotcha.
And I actually came up with that name because so many of my friends had Jockey or Fighter Pilot Joe, and so I just did something that was completely
the opposite.
The opposite. That's where that name comes from.
And then, like on your hat, it says TNP. That stands for the Nutnfancy Project.
Yes, sir. That's what it stands for. And all the viewers, it's kind of become the nomenclature for everything going on here.
Right. Now, so people think, since you've been doing this almost since, probably YouTube wasn't even that old when you were putting up some of the first videos, right? Because YouTube's only like 5 years old.
Right. I've been out since 2008. My account dates back to 2006. Like I said, I was going to use it for other purposes. It got tasked to the Nutnfancy Project.
Yeah. And so you might think, all right, how much could one guy say about one knife, right? This is going to be a 60-second video. But you have shown that it is possible to talk about a knife or a gun or a backpack in such detail that it can take 15 minutes, half an hour, an hour. Now, tell me the philosophy here that
oh my gosh, it's so funny.
Where more is better, right? I mean, you don't miss a thing on these reviews.
Let me first say I'm just a voice. I'm just a data point. I'm not the end all for all of these items. There's lots of good reviewers. There's lots of good voices reviewing the same stuff I do. But my approach is very different in that I talk what I call, and this is part of my own vocabulary I've established in the Nutnfancy project, philosophies of use.
Right.
And I use that term instead of application or something like that. And I roll it into my video review. And I'm talking, how do you intend to use this device and integrate it into your systems? That's another thing I approach. I have thousands of law enforcement, and military, and contractors, and responsible civilians in my audience. And I want them to think in terms of their systems. These are good people doing good things. And I'm their database, partially, for getting information on improving their systems. That's all rolled into that knife video, and honestly, it makes it very interesting to people, as evidenced, I guess, by the view numbers on a knife video that lasts 30 minutes. It's crazy, I know.
And when you talk about this, you know, we'll get to some of the bigger philosophies here, but you know, I think I remember out of the gate, isn't one of the taglines on your site was like a reviewer of dangerous things?
You have a great memory. True, that is a video I posted in 2009. Where I address what I term the protectionist culture. Now, I think Glenn has talked about this in other terms. We're kind of talking and addressing the same type of mindset, where instead of, you know, encouraging value systems, training that enable us to use whatever dangerous thing you want to talk about, it might be a knife, might be a gun, might be a fast car, the government is stepping in, the protectionists are stepping in, as they have in European countries, and said, we are going to protect you. We do not trust you with these dangerous things. Right. And we're going to legislate them out of your hands because you are an idiot. Right. That's what they tell us. So I slam the protectionist culture in my video, dangerous things, and address it head on.
And part of your themes is how, as a society, we have sort of you know, like, in a sort of wussified a generation. We have kids that just they don't know how to take care of themselves, and you kind of make this the obligation of parents to train their kids so that they're competent with things that may be tools that others might consider to be quote unquote dangerous.
That is true. I have several videos along those lines. And by the way, for people who might go to the website YouTube.com, Nutnfancy, there is a video called Navigating the Nutnfancy Project. If you watch that in a computer environment, you'll see all the annotations pop up, and you can go to videos like we're talking about now that might be interesting to you. And one of them, like you just said, is training your children. Mm-hmm. And here's my kid right here, Tactical Doodle, jump in front of the camera, say, yo, yo.
Wow.
So great. He is my grown-up son now, and he's been trained in dangerous things, in firearms. I have a video series out there called Children of the Gun, of all things. It just sounds so politically incorrect. I love the title. But in it, I talk about there's 4 phases of teaching your children. I talk about specifics. It's hilarious. I call the little kid phase the zygote phase. They graduate to being a tadpole. Then they graduate to being a scout. These are all my terms that I made up. And then they go into being a Jedi. Tactical Doodle right here is a Jedi. And let me briefly explain the awesomeness of getting your children to the Jedi level. They are completely trustworthy with guns, that you don't need these trigger locks or whatever to keep them safe, because it's in their heart, it's in their head. They've been raised up their entire life to be proficient with those dangerous things and to be a functional member of society. The value system, that's another key concept, is what controls the so-called dangerous things. A lot of times the protectionists will say, well, if you get a gun like this in your hands, you're going to be corrupted by it.
You have the whole toolkit of show and tell here.
Oh, you know it. You know it, Scott. So they will say that this corrupts us, that the mere fact that you have that is going to cause society problems, and that is a fallacy. It's a lie. Right. When in fact that value system is not corrupted. In fact, if anything, it's enhanced by the mastering of dangerous things. Oh, and I'll talk about I'll say it, the depussification of society too.
Okay, I said a softer version of that. It is the internet, but you can direct all of your complaint emails. We'll send them over to the Nutnfancy project. Right, I understand what you're saying. A lot of people at home are like, yeah, they understand that we've, that when I call this this wimped out generation. When you throw these kind of terms or these ideas even in that video, do you get a strong reaction from people who are saying, like, you're crazy? This is not just, it is literally dangerous.
To answer the question, I'll start by saying who the audience of the Nutnfancy project is. I said at the outset, it's not a popular culture channel page. I could run it so differently and get so many more subscriptions and views on the videos. I just won't compromise my integrity, whether it's in the gear review, whether it's my philosophy videos.
Right.
It's my value system. It's my approach and life philosophy that is the foundation. So to answer the question, do I get criticisms? Sure I do. There'll be people who will say, even people who subscribe to the project say, I didn't really agree with that term. But what we've established in the Nutnfancy project, and I'm talking I call them TMPers, people who follow, is a huge support. They understand where I'm coming from. They roll with it, and they know the truthfulness of the message, and they go with it. And honestly, if there's any people that are uncool, they're disrespectful, they're foul-mouthed, they get ran from TMP, not by me, but by TMPers. It is pretty much self-policing. So when we talk about that video, that was pretty much a attention step when I called it that. But the message stands, is that as a society, we are extremely pampered. We have our cell phones. We have online demand internet, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong.
Right.
We have, food in 5 minutes. What happens when all of that shuts off?
Right.
What happens to us as individuals? Are we so addicted to that we cannot function like our forefathers, like our pioneer ancestors? They did it without electricity. They had babies. They had dances. They were happy. They lived great lives. This is something that I encourage in the Nutnfancy project, that we get back to that we can enjoy the current technology. I'm all about that. I love it. But on the other side, we better have a reserve parachute. And that reserve parachute better be, we understand how to live life without all these amenities. And we don't curl up in the corner, start sucking our thumb and saying, my iPhone died, life is done, I want to die.
Well, and this is a big part of the focus here at GBTV, and Glenn talks a great deal about that kind of preparation. And in fact, we also now even have our own sort of GBTV reality show called Independence USA on it's Wednesday nights, I think, and that follows a family that's making just those kind of preparations. For somebody who maybe doesn't have a gun, has never picked up a knife, hasn't gotten any food storage or any of that. What do you have, like, sort of entry-level advice for somebody that might be watching this? Like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to go and have a big gun like the one you just held up, but I want to take better care of my family. What are some sensible first steps?
Great question. Deep subject. The first thing I'll do is recommend they watch my video, Obligation of Carry. This is intended for people who are considering carrying a gun for self-defense.
You know what? I have a clip of that video. Let me just play a little bit of it, and then we'll talk about it. So that's our clip 4, Obligation of Carry.
Older, you darn well better have your gun on you when you go outside the house. Because when you license yourself to carry pistol, you're going to take upon yourself several obligations which are serious, serious business. One of them is you better know darn well what you're doing. You better be good with your gun. You better be able to hit what you're shooting at. You better be able to fire under stress. You better know your gun. And you better have it on you, like, all the time. If you fail to do that as a concealed carry permit holder, Nutnfancy recommends you do not get your concealed carry permit.
That's pretty straightforward. And so what kind of reaction did you get to that statement?
100% positive. I think the views on that video are like 325,000 at this point. It was embraced by the concealed carry permit community, of which I'm a very small part. They do so many good things. There's all kinds of organizations. And then I refined that with another video called the Concealed Carry Protocol. And that's what I recommend to answer this question, guys and gals, thinking about arming up for self-defense. Watch. Because you need to ask yourself, are you willing to take another human life? It's serious stuff, and I don't approach it flippantly in the Nutnfancy project. I discussed that, but let's say you've done that, you studied out in your mind, you've realized that there is evil in the world. There is evil from whatever quarter. It can come and ruin your life, as it has done thousands and thousands of times to good people around the world. If that's the case, I recommend you do arm up, because being armed gives you options. The protectionists will say, well, you know, being armed makes you paranoid. It makes you a dangerous society. That's not true, because as I've told my viewers in many videos, my first option whenever I can is to run away, to get out of there. I don't want to pull my gun and use it, but you have small children, you have a wife you want to protect, and it goes back to our American roots. And I know Glenn's talked about this, and that is self-sufficiency, that the government's not there to protect you. If we go into what's called without rule of law, basically the cessation of services, which I think we will see in our lifetime for whatever reason, natural disaster, man-made disaster, you're in charge of your security.
Right.
It's not the government. The police are non-functional for that reason. We have modern-day examples like the Rodney King riots where that happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, have a gun. And I would probably jump again into that video, Navigating the Nutnfancy Project, and I will give you all kinds of good recommendations for you to arm up. A pump shotgun is a great choice, close-in choice. As many people have said before, have a handgun. That kind of requires its own set of skills and training to use, and advocate all of that here in TMP.
And some of these things all fit into some of the overall philosophy, something you call the sheepdog concept. We're going to talk about that. We'll take a quick break, and then I want to hear more about it. Stay with us here for another segment with Nutnfancy. Welcome back to the second hour of Glenn Beck for the Record. We'll pick things up where we left off at the end of our first hour. We're talking with the host of the Nutnfancy project on the YouTube channel called Nutnfancy, who's still not ready to give us his real name, but maybe someday. Maybe someday he'll feel comfortable. In the meantime, is it Mr. Nutnfancy or Nutnfancy Sir?
You just call me Nutn for now.
Nutn, okay. I went to the break talking about the sheepdog concept, and so give us the concept.
Okay, the term sheepdog, the term wolves, and how they interact with each other is not mine. It's actually Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. He wrote a book bringing up these terms. I think perhaps my video popularized it, and it really took off after that video. What I discussed there is that we need to take care of each other. And you introed it very well, Scott. You said that there's some serious themes in TMP, and one of them is we do just that we just don't stand by and watch someone else suffer. If we have the means and the capability to help. I opened the video with the example in 1982 of Lenny Skutnik. I think he was an off-duty firefighter who jumped into the river after Air Florida crashed. And
in Washington, D.C., yeah.
That's correct. And Priscilla Tirado, I think I'm getting her name right. Priscilla Tirado, I'm getting some feedback here.
Okay, we all right?
Priscilla Tirado was rescued by Lenny Skutnik. And so I'm getting like huge feedback.
It may be on our end. I'm not sure if
there you go. That's better right there.
It's smoothed out. All right. Well,
there you go.
Part of self-reliance as a host is that I have the character to persevere through whatever technical difficulties.
I don't. I just did that. I thought it was the voices in my head again.
Those voices. Yeah.
But she was saved by someone who's willing to step forward. Now, keep in mind, on that bridge that day, there were hundreds of people watching what was going on. That these people in the river were dying. And so I springboard off of that, and I talk about, if we can, materially and mentally prepare. Those are two sides, and that's what I do here in TMP, materially prepare with whatever, and mentally prepare to help. And I also did a video called A Story of First Aid, also part of that. And since then, I've heard of thousands and thousands of TMPers doing just that they're helping
other
their
people in a moment of need.
Yeah.
Because
the golden rule. Now, there's a more serious side to the sheepdog concept, and it talks about armament. And I pretty much am addressing the mass shooter in that. And we've had examples of this in our history. Columbine, Virginia Tech, where for whatever reason, these people go into these free fire zones. You know, they call them gun-free zones, but what they are is free-fire zones, and they just start doing their business and killing innocent people. I think a sheepdog could step in and change that. And so I'm an advocate according to local laws, what your laws say. I want my viewers to be very cognizant of ramifications for the intervention, to understand the situation very carefully. We approach that seriously, but that's the other half of sheepdog concept.
And I have a little clip from your sheepdog video.
Sure.
So if we can take a quick look at that, and then I want to build this out in some of the other philosophical points. The sheepdog concept.
This is probably the key attribute for being a sheepdog, is they just cannot abide in themselves to see suffering and not do anything about it. Within a sheepdog is a feeling of what is right and what is wrong. There is a value system in that sheepdog, and they can clearly define when they're seeing something wrong. There is something inside them that arises to the surface and comes forward and pushes them and motivates them into action. Some of these sheepdogs, in my opinion, don't even know they're sheepdogs until that moment comes, that moment of truth.
Well, the first obvious thing is you stop shaving, apparently, sometime.
When I have days off for my real job, yes, I don't shave, just because I don't want to shave.
Exactly. So, but in the, you say some people maybe a sheepdog and not know it. Now, so do you feel, is there a sheepdog in, a little bit of a sheepdog in all of us? Or are there just certain people that it is the way that God put them together that they are just wired to be that person that is going to help?
I don't know if I'm the expert, but where I'm at now in life, I would say that, feedback again, voices in my head. I would say that it's in a very small percentage of us. Audie Murphy in World War II would be a good example. I don't know if that's a direct application of the sheepdog concept, but he was a hero that in the face of extreme adversity, he stepped up. He's the most unassuming person you could ever imagine Audie Murphy was. And we have people in the generation of our military serving these young kids out there doing the same thing. It's a small minority, I hate to say. There's people, I've been in many situations in my life where there has been suffering going on. I looked left, I looked right, nobody's intervening, so I intervened. And I have that story is told in the video, A Story of First Aid.
Yeah, and so and this really is, I think we get a very clear message from you that it's like there may be these very detailed reviews, and it may sound like just geek fun for gearheads, as you said, but this is, but it does fit this material preparation, for a larger sort of life orientation. You also have. There's other themes that you develop in the sort of TNP philosophy, and you mentioned earlier about the idea of a world without the rule of law for whatever period of time. And I have a clip from one of your videos about the rule of law. Let's look at this, and then we'll talk about it.
When you roll in, no pun intended, roll into WROL, you're back in the 1700s, dude. You're homesteading. It's all up to you. All the things that people did a century ago or 2 centuries ago, you're going to have to start doing. And that body of knowledge, in a large degree, has been lost. And that's one reason why you see in the Nutnfancy project, I like getting out in the woods. I like practicing those survival skills. I like living without electricity, roughing it and toughing it so I can customize myself to such situations. Because if you've done that and then you roll into that situation, you're like, yeah, I've been there, done it. It's no big deal. I'm used to it.
So there's you out in the snow, and so at some point, the kids, the family, do they like, yeah, dad's a little crazy? They usually don't want to go. Now, Tactical Doodle, my oldest, he's on board. He knows I could say if he has time, he's a busy college student these days, but if he has time, he'll go. My youngest kid, I call him Last Suspect in YouTube. He is not on board. He loves his video games. It's hard to pull him away. He doesn't do it, but when he gets out there, he has a blast. So part of that WRL, like I said in that mini clip, is toughening ourselves up, learning those lost life skills from our pioneer ancestors. I will continue to make videos along these lines. I have thousands of ideas in my head here in TNP. I'm never at a loss for content. Never. It's only a function of time and me getting them out. Yeah, because like you said, you have a real job, and you said until recently, I think you were had a military career as well.
So this is still an avocation for you, and you said you could be doing this in ways that would have made it even more popular, but you didn't want to compromise. Do you see this being that you're just going to keep doing what you're doing, or do you think you're going to try to make this something bigger and wider reaching?
I'm a believer in new media. YouTube is new media. There's other avenues for it as well. If you have a message, a real message that connects to people, at least if you're doing what I'm attempting to do here in TNP, you will find an audience. So I want to keep progressing that. Am I going to continue to do what I'm doing?
Do you make money? Do you make money from this, or any significant way that it supports itself?
It's almost supporting itself, not quite. I have ads that run in YouTube, and that's what I love about the YouTube environment, that it kind of just runs all on its own, that Google, YouTube gets the advertisers, they run it next to there, and yes, that does bring in revenue that buys a lot of the gear that you see in the Nutnfancy project, the ammunition, which is a sizable expense.
Right.
But yeah, I've been offered television offers. Discovery Channel production company wanted me to participate in that show, Dual Survival. And for the record, I really don't think I'm that awesome of a survivalist. I have my techniques. I know they work. I can withstand the harsh conditions of the woods, no problem.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of guys that are tougher, willing to eat the bugs, the earthworms, and all the other nasty stuff, which I don't.
All right.
But let me talk about that WRL thing, because I don't know if I really addressed that too well.
Okay.
What's going to send us into without rule of law? And there's all kinds of terms for it. I've always used that one because I want it to be very descriptive. And, what sends us there? Is it an earthquake? Is it a volcano eruption in the United States?
Right.
Is it cessation of the economy for whatever reason? I don't know. I hope it really doesn't happen. And one of the things I say in the Nutnfancy project is don't hasten the day.
Right.
And guys that don't know anything about TNP, I want the message to get out that I'm a family man. I love rule of law. I spent 20 years of my military career supporting rule of law, defending the Constitution, which I will continue to do. Enjoy life. Get out there and make family and friend memories, but also prepare for that, WROL. And it will be very serious. It will take a lot of people off guard. There will be all kinds of people that said it could never happen, and when it happens, they're going to be caught flat-footed, and they're going to be like those people standing on that bridge over the Potomac River in 1982, frozen into inaction. They don't know what to do.
I can't remember if I mentioned this on this program in past weeks or months. I kind of feel like maybe I did briefly, so my apologies to the audience if I did. But I was listening to a podcast recently with an author that I kind of know, Tim Ferriss, and who lives in San Francisco. I don't think that he would have ever thought of himself as much of a survivalist or kind of an end time sort of scenario guy at all. But he just sort of as a point of preparation took a little course that San Francisco offers the citizens, in case there's an earthquake. And he said it was a really revelatory moment. He never would have thought of storing food or water. And they said to the group that was there, well, how many fire companies do you think there are in this, large city? And they all guessed, 100, 150. And he said, well, there's really only 12. So if something really happens, how long do you think it's going to take before we get to your apartment building or your house?
That's right.
You may be without power. You may not see law enforcement. You have to take care of yourself and maybe be prepared to do that for a good while. And he was describing this as sort of a pivot point, for him. I think a lot of people, and Glenn can say it over and over again, and talk about, hey, store up some food, just a little bit, and some more, but at some point, doesn't it take? What's the thing that kind of kicks people into action? Is it really only after an electrical storm and they lose power for 36 hours and they start to freak out? Does it take something to kind of kick you into action?
Great example with your friend. And by the way, in the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquakes, I was very impressed how that community of San Francisco pulled together. They didn't have any looting. They didn't have any rioting. They were great with each other. I hope that happens with all communities, when that happens. What does it take to spur someone into action? It takes an event like that for most ordinary folks. And when I lived up in Spokane, Washington, we had an ice storm. My neighbors were great folks. They were caught completely off guard. They didn't have fuel. Very few had food, warm clothing, since there was no electricity, on and on. And so I stepped in, and that was actually the basis of a video I called Without Rule of Law, Resurgence of Community. And I talk about that everyone thinks, some preparedness folks will think they're going to be holed up in their bunker with their M1 Garand, their MREs, and they're just going to wait it all out.
Right.
I don't think that's how it's going to play out at all. You're going to see your neighborhoods come together, as it's always been in the history of mankind, that we work together. We're trying to get society functioning again, and you'll start that. It'll start in a micro mode, move into a macro mode.
You talked about new media and community in your TNP, the Nutnfancy Project community. Do people get together? Are they friends? Do you have get-togethers? Do you go out and talk to folks?
I do meet them when I go on the road for like a SHOT Show. I just covered the SHOT Show, the sporting goods convention in Las Vegas this year. And I meet them personally. I meet them at personal appearances. To be brutally honest, I am so maxed out in the production of the Nutnfancy Project and doing the adventures, the gear testing, and then producing the videos, editing them, then being a dad, a husband to my good wife, Mrs. Nutnfancy.
Mrs. Nutnfancy, right.
Mrs. Nutnfancy. And then just doing my regular job. I wish I had more headroom in my schedule to interact more.
Right.
I don't, and it frustrates my viewers because they do want to connect. If this was a call-in show, you would see it. I think, did we have call-in shows that I was on in 2010?
Yeah, I think we did do call-ins, and maybe let's see what we can do. Maybe we'll try to get you on semi-regularly.
They would love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I apologize to my viewers that I'm not more accessible. I have a Twitter account. Subscribe to my Twitter. I take care of my Twitter followers. I jump in the comments whenever I can. I have my son Tactical Doodle, my good secretary Verolinus, who's in there working and representing the project. But my main job, the main way I can serve my subscribers, is by making my videos. And along the lines of WROL, I have several more key videos coming out. That if you like it, subscribe to youtube.com Nutnfancy, and you'll see them come out.
Is the Twitter Nutnfancy?
Yes, sir, it is.
Indeed. Mr. Nutnfancy, we thank you indeed for joining us, and I know our audience is going to be, a lot of them, ready to go and subscribe if they're not familiar with it, and probably a few of them already were familiar with it the moment that we began the interview. So thank you for joining us, and we hope to have you back on soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity, Scott. Adios.
Indeed. When we come back.